and how public health protocols are being integrated into the digital traveler identity for a smooth travel experience as the world begins to travel again. Next, we'll hear from Christopher Emson, Director of Sustainability and Destination Stewardship for WTTC. He'll speak about the Safe Travels program, and he'll be followed by Keith Snowd, COO of Kaleidoscope Adventures, and Janet Utley, Head of Business Support Transformation for Visit Britain, about how they've implemented these new protocols. With that, it's over to you, Helena, to lead us off. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you all hear me well? Great. Thank you. You can move to the next slide, please. So good morning, good afternoon. I'm really very happy to be participating on this conference. Thanks to the organization of this summit for the opportunity to discuss this very important topic to restore the traveler confidence. My job today is to take you through a few slides to explain a little bit about WTTC work, supporting the recovery of our industry, and also talk about our vision of the seamless traveler journey of the future. Our mission is really to maximize the growth of the travel sector and work with governments and the private sector to drive economic development with key focus on job creation. WTTC was formed almost 30 years ago with the main objective to speak one voice on behalf of the travel and tourism sector. I have some members on the next slide, please, just for you to have an example of who our members are. We have members who are CEOs, chairs, presidents from some of the biggest names in travel and tourism. We cover all geographies. WTTC is an organization which covers, as you see, the whole travel industry with representatives from airlines, hotels, and cruises. So that's so important so that we can really represent the one voice for the travel sector. Among others, we also have companies like Google and Visa who supports our industry. As our main objective, as I had mentioned, is to talk one voice on behalf of the industry, but really to ensure fair policies. Our membership comprises of around 40% within the Americas, 30% in Asia, and 30% from Europe. On the next slide, you will see that research has been a very, very important accomplishment for WTTC. We quantify the economic impact of this sector for 185 countries, and we look at GDP and job creation. Our economic research includes the COVID-19 crisis impact, as well as estimates the return of jobs with recovery initiatives, also with the collaboration from governments. Our reports offer global guidelines for this sector and bring also new views of the future of travel and the path to recover. So our estimated recovery economic impact shows that through these critical initiatives such as safe travel, seamless travel, and other cleanliness protocols, that will really make a very positive impact to our industry, and the recovery will be faster. Much of our content is available on our website, so I invite you all to check our content and download our reports. On the next slide, I have a snapshot of the industry. According to WTTC's 2019 data, the travel and tourism sector accounted for over 10% of global GDP and supported 300 million jobs in 2019. Outpacing the growth of the global economy for 9 consecutive years. As one of the fastest growing industry, the slowdown of travel has had devastating impact beyond the sector itself. The benefits of travel is spread far beyond its direct impacts on GDP and employment. Indirect benefits apply throughout the supply chain and interlinkages to other industries, such as agriculture, arts, construction. Additionally, the sector is highly inclusive, employing and offering opportunities to all people, including minorities, youth, and women. WTTC is engaging with the G20 countries, as you see on the next slide, to accelerate recovery. Travel and tourism, as I had said, it's the world's largest sector, and it plays a very critical role in poverty reduction and also driving prosperity. Unfortunately, the sector is facing unprecedented challenges with the COVID-19 pandemic, so we need really to work together on the recovery. We see there is a unique window of opportunity for leaders from the public and private sector to work together to create the path forward to provide economic recovery needed for the industry without compromising necessary health measures and bringing back millions of jobs. Under the leadership of the G20, and very specifically on a meeting last October 2020, the global travel and tourism private sector was asked to put together a plan to support the recovery and bring back 100 million jobs. WTTC members, other leaders, international organizations have identified some critical plan of actions, and these are being worked right now. I'll give you a few examples. These actions align with the WTTC's key initiatives. One of them is the action to facilitate a consistent and safe travel experience, part of our programs, which we are talking about today. Also, cooperate with governments in the efforts of COVID-19 testing before departure, contact tracing within the international testing protocol and framework. We strongly recommend that testing is done prior to departure to bring the traveler confidence back. Also, we work within three main pillars, as you see on the next slide, which exemplifies our current strategy and how we are approaching recovery. These are the three main areas of focus right now: security, travel facilitation, price preparedness, management and recovery, and sustainable growth. Today, I'll be talking about travel facilitation and seamless travel, and my colleague Chris will talk about safety protocols. But in addition to these initiatives, we have many others. Under crisis management, for example, we do a lot of research and we gather best practices, which we have been sharing with governments to try to recover faster. Our sector is very resilient, and it's important that we work together with governments to really bring the traveler confidence back and have the right policies in place. Within climate action, we have the opportunity to support global initiatives. Currently, we see businesses are needing to focus on their environmental track record and their support for diversity and inclusion. This is the time for the sector to drive meaningful changes that will make a lasting difference for the future generations. On the next slide, I would like to talk a little bit more about seamless travel in our Seamless Traveler Journey initiative under WTTC, working together with many other organizations such as IATA, CLIA, and ICAO. In 2018, WTTC identified the need to increase capacity to fulfill the demand and the requirement for security processes to be as robust as possible. We launched this program with the objective to gather data to enable a seamless, safe, secure, end-to-end traveler journey, including both air and non-air, and promoting a vision for electronic verified travel information at each stage of the journey. Seamless travel is defined by WTTC as a journey during which the traveler no longer needs to present travel documents such as boarding passes or passport multiple times at different checkpoints. The idea is that the future travelers will be able to check in, proceed through security, board the aircraft, collect luggage, check in their hotel or cruise, simply by confirming their identity and their booking data. With the COVID-19 crisis, seamless travel became even more critical once these new technologies allows for touchless experience, reducing the spread of the virus. So WTTC, through our initiatives, we're trying to accelerate these implementations. Our program looks at new technologies such as biometrics and digital identity, but we also advocate strongly for removal of quarantines related to travel and replaced by COVID testing as part of the journey. And information about the testing may also be part of the new digital traveler profile. On the next slide, you see some additional details about our initiative. Our guidelines released in December last year provides best practices for the public and private sectors and to benefit from the new technologies and deploy the touchless processes, which will help to bring the traveler confidence back. In addition to what I said before, also incorporating the health components and the cleanliness protocols. The recommendations are organized around 5 principles of success: collaboration, data collection and sharing, data privacy, interoperability, and customer first by design. We see that the COVID-19 pandemic is proving to accelerate the innovation and the integration of new technologies. We see that amid stay-at-home orders, digital adoption and consumption are on the rise, with consumers now expecting contactless technologies as a basic prerequisite. Travelers will want to decrease their contact with high touch points across their journey, from viewing menus on their device and using mobile check-in to accessing aspects of their hotel rooms, also through their phones. They want to really decrease their contact with high touch points across their journey. And based on the research from Visa, based on the future of travel research as well that WTTC put together recently, 66% of consumers are using less cash and moving toward more contactless solutions. So we see that it's the right time, right trend to focus on new technologies, including biometrics. On the next slide, we just show the key content of our global guidelines, also identified as a critical pillar for the G20 agenda, G20 discussions, as I said before. WTTC recommendations are based on the best practices we identify, driving security and a best experience, which is contactless. Travelers create a single digital identity containing their biographic biometric data and any additional information required for identity verification, such as the health certificates. All of this information gathered prior to the journey starts. We have also assessed the benefits of these new processes to accelerate recovery. And we see that many processes, such as, for example, several facial recognition solutions across aviation, including airport check-in and biometric baggage drop, require no human contact. It does support physical distancing. In sectors outside aviation, the same biometric solutions can be leveraged to create touchless experience, such as hotel check-in and cruise embarkation. All of this will help us to recover, but it will also help us to prepare for future crises. Also, these solutions can allow for additional health screening and increase the speed in which travelers are processed at the main checkpoints, enabling physical distancing when required. And also the privacy by design concept is critically important. So we also look and provide recommendations on data privacy. Our report calls for both public and private sector collaboration, acknowledging a lot of efforts already ongoing and implementing. We see a lot of progress in many different countries with the biometrics, facial recognition being used to expedite boarding, e-gates, and also biometric kiosks at main airports or ports. We see that all together will set the foundation and will also help to bring the traveler confidence back and drive traveler acceptance to these new processes, communicating the benefits. As part of the WTTC recovery, we have also released our global safety protocols. So now I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Chris Inson, Director of Sustainability, who will present you with our Safe Travels program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helena. And hello, and thank you very much for the invitation to this event. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, albeit virtually, and to have this opportunity to share with you the experience that we've had now with the Safe Protocols and Stamp initiative, which has been a very successful initiative and which we're still chasing in terms of delivering the success that that is expected. And if you could please go to the next slide. Prior to working on the stamp, a large part of my job was actually dealing with the issue of combating overcrowding or so-called over-tourism. But little did I know that a certain virus would take care of that challenge for me. So naturally, since the crisis broke out, the resources of WTTC have been almost totally dedicated to crisis management and recovery activities and supporting members during this exceptionally challenging period. And among the insights, toolkits, and initiatives we've worked on, we've developed the Safe Travels Protocols and STAMP, which have turned out to be very successful indeed, with over 250 destinations and many thousands of businesses using it. But let me start from the beginning. If you could take the next slide, please. So just prior to the crisis, and in a feat of prescience, WTTC released a report on crisis preparedness, management and recovery, which looked at the impacts of different types of crisis on travel and tourism. Our analysis of major viral epidemics shows that the average recovery time for visitor numbers to a destination following an epidemic was 19.4 months. But with the right response and management, the sector could substantially recover in as few as 10 months. Now, there's no doubt that COVID-19 is quite a different beast from previous epidemics and will certainly affect both the demand and supply sides of the sector much more profoundly. But nevertheless, there are certain key principles remain, and there's a number of do's and don'ts that underlie all successful recovery initiatives. Now, among the don'ts, we have working in silos and reinventing or creating unnecessary new travel processes. Now, unfortunately, this has often been the response, for example, after 9/11, where we saw a U-shaped recovery. Instead, we have to learn from the past and from good examples and practices while ensuring that there is comprehensive coordination and alignment across the public and private sectors to ensure that there's robust global measures in place to help rebuild confidence. This was the case after the economic crisis, where recovery was led through the G20, and we saw a much sharper V-shaped recovery, which is shown in the next slide. So you can see A, that's after 9/11, and B, the much sharper V-shaped recovery after the economic crisis. But next slide, please. The need for greater collaboration and coordination was recognized by Saudi Arabia, who, as Helena mentioned, under its presidency of the G20, asked the travel and tourism private sector to put together a plan to support the recovery of the sector and effectively bring back 100 million jobs. The first action of the 12-point plan was to implement standardized global health and safety protocols across all industries and geographies to facilitate a consistent and safe travel experience. So indeed, this is globally recognized as a vital action. Next slide, please. So as COVID gripped us all about a year ago, WTTC acted quickly to produce new global protocols for use by travel and tourism stakeholders as best practice guidelines to help restart and speed up the recovery of the sector. They're designed to, one, rebuild confidence among travelers and within the sector, and two, to provide consistency and guidance to destination authorities, travel providers, operators, and travelers about the new approach to health and hygiene in a post-COVID-19 world. The protocols were developed in collaboration with WTTC members, leading industry associations, and in international organizations, and they take into account current guidelines from WHO and CDC. To date, we've launched 11 protocols for 11 key travel and tourism industries, and they're all listed on our website, which we encourage you to check out. Next slide, please. The process for obtaining the stamp is quite simple. Basically, any public destination authority that wishes to use the stamp can apply directly to WTTC. We would then carry out a review of the protocols to ensure that they're aligned with our own protocols. And once this has been done, the destination can have access to the stamp. This is, of course, explained in more detail on the webpage. Now, importantly, those public destination authorities that have the stamp have both the opportunity and the responsibility to also issue the stamp to their own stakeholders, which include subsidiary public authorities like DMOs, provincial governments, and municipalities, as well as their private sector, while of course ensuring that these stakeholders adhere to the protocols and to the terms and conditions for using the stamp. Now, following my intervention, we're going to have presentations from both the public authority, namely Visit Britain, and also from the private sector with Kaleidoscope Adventures. And I'm sure these will give you a much clearer idea of the process and how it works in practice. Next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have been very pleasantly surprised by the enormous success and interest in the stamp. It has currently been obtained by 251 destinations and 64 countries around the world, and many, many thousands of businesses. Here in this map, the capital letters denote when the national level authority has a stamp, and the small letters denote when the national authority doesn't have the stamp, but perhaps some regional, state, or municipal authorities have it. So that would be, for example, the case in the US or in Canada. So in short, I would say that the stamp's success demonstrates its importance, not only to destinations and businesses, but also to travelers and the hundreds of millions of people around the world who work in and depend on the travel and tourism sector. Next slide, please. Just before I hand over to Janet from Visit Britain, I just wanted to take this opportunity to let you all know that the annual WTTC Summit, the Global Summit, which is being organized in partnership with the government of Quintana Roo in Mexico, will be held in Cancun on the 25th to 27th of April under the theme, Uniting the World for Recovery. This will be the first time we hold a mixed hybrid summit, and of course we'll be observing all the relevant health and safety protocols. The virtual platform will allow a high number of virtual attendees. So if you are interested, please do reach out to us and we can send you virtual invitations. I would add, just to finish, that we firmly believe that the summit is more important than ever, given the need to enhance international cooperation and strengthen public-private collaboration to accelerate recovery and restore traveler confidence. Thanks, and over to you, Janet.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for including Visit Britain in this presentation. It's really important to us that we align with yourselves, and that also that we shout about the work that has been achieved across Britain in this. And I do hope that anybody that is watching that has any queries, do reach out and afterwards if you don't ask questions today, because we're very, very happy to share what has happened in our space. Next slide, please. So we begun our process looking at what was needed, and this is our early adopter, Bamburgh Castle in Northumberland. Next slide, please. And our process, really, we went through a very clear approach to working with industry and listening to what industry needed of us as the National Tourist Board. And there were some very clear things that were coming out of that consultation of what was needed. Very much about giving confidence to the businesses. Now, when I say giving confidence, this was around being able to demonstrate and show that the correct guidance or protocols were being followed. And at the start of COVID last year, this time last year, there was a lot of energy being put behind various different guidance documents. And it became really quite confusing to the businesses. And we felt that it was important that we strip that down and make it focused on what our government was saying needed to be in place, WTTC was saying needed to be in place, and what their particular industry sector was advising in granular detail, but bringing it under one umbrella and making it easy. It was important that whatever we choose with We're Good to Go, that it give reassurance to visitors. And as we've come in and out of lockdown at various points, it has been used to great effect to do just that. And another key point, and Chris alluded to this just now in relation to his normal day job and looking at over-tourism, in certain parts of the country, we do have honeypot locations, and coming out of lockdown for those honeypot locations can be extremely intimidating to those local residents. So we needed to make sure that we could confidently say the businesses have done what they need to do. And a campaign run around this called Know Before You Go. And it was very much about getting people to go online and check if they needed to book, check what they needed to be across before they went to a particular location. And we took the stance at that time of know before you go and we're good to go, which is our industry standard, because we wanted to do this thing of taking our public on a journey that actually we've done what we need to do as an industry, and now we need you to play your part, that actually you need to also follow guidance when you're out and about. And public behaviour has been quite a challenge coming in and out of lockdown, so it's been quite a key element of our messaging. We were very clear that we also wanted to avoid a confusion in messaging, and we wanted to avoid, unfortunately, when there is a crisis, there will always be people that will see that as a money-making opportunity. And to try and quell that and to try and stop and look at what was available to the businesses, it was important to us that what we did was a free process, because that in itself was a way of actually saying, this is the one that you need to follow, and we will absorb the costs of that to help you. And that in turn stopped a lot of spin-offs that were happening. And I'm sure if you're a destination, you may well have been experiencing some of that yourselves. And of course, global recovery best practice, absolutely critical. Next slide, please. Throughout the process, we run every other week locally our consumer sentiment tracker. Consumer sentiment tracker, in terms of a government recognised certification, has consistently appeared, and you'll see here in this snapshot, 41% at that time. Throughout the last year, that has not disappeared from the consumer feedback that we've had. So actually that certification, it has gone up, it has gone down, but it has stayed very much in this page and very much an important part. And that again is why we've listened, is why we've made it important to have that mark that gives the consumer confidence. Next slide, please. So as we move forward, what exactly have we achieved? How have we delivered this? And has the industry engaged with it? Next slide, please. And indeed, I think since our launch in June 2020, and I have to say, launching something like this in literally 3 months was no mean feat. And I'm sure all of you will have experienced the same thing if you have been working on a process such as this. We had to move at pace. That was what was needed of us. And we've had to stay in place. Even in periods of lockdown, we have continued, and I'll talk a little bit in a moment how we've done that. So in terms of where we've come, well, actually on this slide it says 44,000 businesses. Today we top 45. We are still growing. We had news from our Prime Minister last night, which actually has seen a sudden flurry, and we anticipate that will continue to go. We've worked very closely with industry bodies and trade associations, and in fact have signed agreements with them that they share granular guidance, and that guidance will go down to the detail in levels that we would not touch upon, but it is for some extremely helpful. So we wanted to have that alignment. And perhaps one thing to say here, and what we hope very much coming through COVID will continue, is that level of collaboration, because we have seen partnership working of nothing we've ever experienced before, and we want that to continue. So there's work underway of how can we as a tourist board actually assist and help with that. And we have our own destination management organisations across England, circa 157 of them in different parts of the country. And again, we have worked with them and made sure that they have moved with us on this journey. And another key ask from industry when we started this process was, please, could we make this a Britain-wide all 4 nations for the UK working together. And we are very proud of the fact that we have achieved that. So Visit England, Visit Wales, Visit Scotland and Tourism Northern Ireland, we have worked exceptionally closely throughout this process, making sure that every step of the way we have been keeping businesses up to date with what they need to hear. Next slide, please. So part of the process is online, it is a free process, and there is an element of robustness that you maybe would not expect. A person, a business goes into the system, completes the process, and then reaches the point where they have to virtually sign terms and conditions. And there are non-negotiables, as you would expect. Those non-negotiables have to be the ability to produce a COVID-19 risk assessment should we do a spot check, and we do run spot checks. We have an independent assessment team that carry that out for us. And perhaps important to say at this point, that point of leaving an email address with us is another non-negotiable. They can't opt out because there has to be an email that keeps the dialogue going. We send, and this is a snapshot of our guidance, every time government guidance changes, every time there is a significant announcement, as we had last night, 8 o'clock this morning in inboxes, there was the announcement in a format that is palatable for our businesses to understand and what action they need to take. And that perhaps has been a big success of our work in terms of how we've kept that engagement going. And when we recently reviewed it, that was one of the things the businesses said they valued, knowing that that would come through if they missed the news. Not everybody stays in front of the news because I think at times it becomes very distressing. So to have that in the inbox has been important. Our Business Advice Hub has continued to stay updated throughout. Whenever there has been funding, whenever there has been guidance changes, the businesses will know from this e-alert that they can link through to the Advice Hub and get the support that they need that way. And we also put in place a helpline because we felt that was another important element here, that if you have something you don't understand, there is someone at the end of a phone, that it's not all a virtual process. And that's been quite a useful exercise. In fact, Visit Scotland trialled first, using that as a support to do outbound calls. And we ourselves have also just begun that this week. So we're asking a few key questions just to get a sense of how industry is feeling now. And as I say, each nation is doing their own version of this. Next slide, please. So that is our story. That is where we have got to. Of course, I'm going to say to you that Britain is safe, we're inspiring and we're welcoming, because we've worked really hard to be so. And we are looking forward to welcoming everybody back. But what I would say is if you need any more guidance from us in terms of the detail of how we've rolled out, we're good to go. Or if you'd like to know any more information, the trade website is there for you. The link is there. And my last slide, please. And here you have my email address, so do get in touch. Thank you. And I'm handing over to Keith now.
Thanks, Janet. We too are here happy to share and here to give information on how we implemented the Safe Travels protocols. We really decided early on in the pandemic that we wanted to support the recovery in every way that we possibly could. And so we sat down during the summer after we got through our big season of cancellations. And we looked at ways, again, following the same ideas that Christopher brought up, to rebuild confidence and to provide a consistent way that we could make sure that we were sharing information, not only with our staff, with our tour directors, our suppliers, our customers, everybody that's in the equation. So as we supported the recovery, kind of broke it down into 4 areas. The first one was our team. It was very important for us to ensure that our team had all of the information they needed to talk with their clients, to talk with suppliers, but that they also felt comfortable with the protocols that we had in the office and how we were going to relate to each other and work together over the next few months, what turned out to be a year now, really made them feel comfortable and supported. So we really looked at that. The second were our clients, and looking at ways with our clients that really gave them confidence. Now, we're a student tour operator, So we have many layers of clients. Our group leaders are often teachers, band directors, choir directors, education teachers, and they have, we have to convince them and make sure that they feel confident, but then we also have to give them tools and provide them opportunities to educate their passengers as well. So we set up some really great programs that have worked really well, and they are ongoing and will continue to be ongoing. I also feel that everything that we've set up so far is going to continue much past COVID because they're really good business practices. The third area we looked at were our suppliers. And I'll dig in a little deeper into that. But again, to create that consistent way that we provide guidance to our suppliers about what we need, not only to supply our customers, but to ensure that our customers are safe. And then the last, and certainly not the least important, equally as important as everything else, is how we support our industry. Because if the industry is strong and everyone is on the same page and we're all supporting the recovery, it helps us as well. So the first thing with clients, with our team that we started with, is we actually did some training. We brought our team together in small groups, very socially distant, and we did some training and some discussions, and we followed all the guidelines that the WTTC had set out and also that the CDC had provided to do those meetings. And it worked out really well, and it really brought to light some really great ideas from our team, and they felt very involved in the process as we reviewed the protocols from the WTTC. Once we got them on board, we started implementing some of the ideas that we all came up with together for our clients. Some easy things that we did, we created a care kit. Since our kaleidoscope themed care kit that has face masks and hand sanitizer and things like that we can give to every passenger. Many tour operators I know have done the same similar idea. But the big things that we did are we included a medical professional, a complimentary package for a medical professional in every tour for our customers. This was a big win for us, and we have our customers asking about it frequently now. And we just insist that they bring a nurse. It has to be a medical professional, whether it's a nurse practitioner, or a doctor. And most of our groups, since they are student groups, have access to somebody to fill that role. So that has been a very popular one and continues to be requested quite a bit. And then the other big one we really worked on for our customers was creating this really clear, transparent process for registration and client communication. That area, to me and to our team, was always something that there is always room for improvement, no matter when we are looking at it. And so we looked at our cancellation policies. We created new flexible cancellation policies that provide additional clarity from what we had before. We created an online registration and payment process that is the same for everybody. As a student tour operator, we don't always collect the money from the individuals. Sometimes it's just a big group check. And so our registration process wasn't the same for both of those types of clients, whether we're collecting the money or whether they were sending it to us as a group payment. We unified that and made it so that everybody follows the same process. That helped us ensure that everybody was getting the same information. And so that transparency really became important. Then on our suppliers, we really spent some time to talk about the other protocols. So we followed the tour operator protocols. To look at the other protocols that the WTTC recommended. And so we created documents for each type of supplier using the WTTC protocols. And we created what we call our KA approved program. And that enabled us to reach out to our suppliers on a regular basis and say, this is what we need from you to be able to be included on our tours. And it took a slow start, but it has now become such a really great opportunity for us. We actually tie in social media with it. We created a certificate to be KA approved. Our marketing team had a great time putting it together. And our supplier management team has a lot of fun really making sure that people not only follow those protocols, but they love talking to people about it and encouraging them to share, the suppliers to share it on their social media. When we get somebody who's approved, we share them on our social media and say, this supplier was approved today, congratulations. And we have gotten a lot of feedback that has created a lot of positive momentum. The way we frame it for our suppliers is we encourage you to follow the WTTC protocols and get your safe travel stamp. If you can't do that, we encourage you to follow the protocols, and we're going to just mark you as KA approved once you have proven to us that you follow the protocol. protocols. So we give them the option, but in support of the industry, we are always encouraging them to go to the WTTC and actually get their stamp if they can. We also, with the suppliers, our tour directors are suppliers. And so we have created some new protocols for our tour directors. These are the people that are on the road with our groups, following the WTTC guidance. Again, as we reach out to the tour directors to really help them think through their on the road experience with their group and how they can make it a safe and healthy experience and follow those guidelines. So additional training there. Some extra added touches that we've added. One is we included post-departure travel protection for each passenger. That was just something extra that we felt was important when a group leaves their origin, that we can guarantee at least that everybody has protection while they're traveling. So if something happens, they're covered. And then the last part, which I don't want to minimize this at all for us, was we have spent a lot of time finding ways within the industry to support messaging that really encourages safe travel, encourages people to participate in the WTTC program. We think it's important. We encourage our staff to contact our elected officials on a regular basis and talk to them in the importance of the travel industry and our recovery and how safe travel can be accomplished by everybody. We participate in forums like this. Other staff members have participated in forums that our clients are part of. We encourage our partners. So we support and we sponsor several podcasts that are important to our clients. And so we encourage our podcasters and our other partners to share our message, and we give them talking points based on the protocols that we agreed to with the WTTC to really get the word out that safe travel is possible and that people can travel and be part of the global economy and do it safely. So then finally, we had to figure out how to market all of this together. So we added a lot of small little things to many areas of our marketing. We first started with updating our proposals. Our proposals that go out to clients have a whole section about the WTTC Safe Travel Stamp and how it's important, and also about our certification of our KA approved for our suppliers. We also changed all of our email signatures to include the Safe Travel Stamp so that people know from the get-go that we have achieved our Safe Travel Stamp and we are maintaining that level of safety and health and safety protection for them. So it's really important for us to get that word out every possible way we can. So I encourage you, to look at the protocols. If you haven't done them yet, do them. They look daunting when you go through them, but they really aren't. They're very attainable. They are easy to manage once you get them in place, and they are just good business practices. And I just like Janet, I am happy to answer questions if you need help with anything or an idea and want to talk about how we implemented one of the policies, or if you want to become one of our approved suppliers, please jump on. But I thank you for having me here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share with what we've done.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you to the other presenters. That was a fabulous presentation. We do have a couple questions for the Q&A, and if you haven't already submitted a question, please feel free to do so at the bottom of your screen in the Q&A box. The first question that we have is, what are the travel protocols under the new normal which are to be implemented by FIT's groups in MICE? Helena, is this a question that you're able to answer for our attendees?
Right, so yeah, we have a new research that is called The Future of Travel, and we list different aspects of the new normal. We do recommend very strongly that all the safety protocols are in place. We see new technologies, as I said before, being very much driven within this crisis, and we see travelers being more accepting of these new processes, using technologies such as biometrics, and willing to have a contactless experience. We also see that testing prior to departure will help and support recovery. For some time, of course, the vaccines are very critical. Will take some time to get, a great percentage of travelers vaccinated. So we do advocate for testing prior to departure. In addition, we also support the new travel passes with health information. We see many different providers testing their applications currently, and we support the testing results being used as part of these travel passes in an electronic form. So I think this is here to stay as well.
Thank you. Another question I'm thinking might be perfect for Christopher to answer. How do you address travel for third world or developing countries that don't have the vaccine yet? Is this something that you or Helena can speak on? Oh, it looks like you're still muted.
Sorry, yes, I think it probably is a better suited question for Helena on the vaccine. It's more related to her work.
Thank you. Helena?
Sorry, what was the question again?
How do you address travel for third world or developing countries that don't have the vaccine yet?
Okay, yeah, so WTTC, we recognize that the vaccination takes some time, and it will differ from country to country based on the policies and vaccines available. So we advocate, we're working very hard with governments to have testing available, rapid tests available for travelers. And we advocate for testing prior to departure, as I mentioned before. And also we are advocating for testing prior to large conferences and events. We see that's the best way to recover faster and address, the differences across countries and availability of the vaccine. And then, of course, together with cleanliness protocols, with electronic information, which also helps the contactless journey, and physical distancing. All of this together will help the traveler confidence back, and also address the different stages of the different countries and the different rollouts of vaccines.
Thank you. Our next question is for Keith. Have you seen any differences between what your international operator partners are asking for and what the group leader, for example, the teacher or customers have required?
So not really, and not for the reason that you think. First of all, there are not a lot of teachers looking to travel internationally right now. The trips that the tours that they're planning are much closer to home for many reasons. But the teachers overwhelmingly are exhausted. There's just no other word for it. And so what we have found is that most of the teachers, when we bring up this subject, are just relieved that we have an answer. So they don't necessarily come to us with the questions because they're so spent. They are really happy that we have it all put together. And that we have the answers for them, that they don't even really need to think about the questions. So we have had on a rare occasion where someone's come in with a school district that has said, we have to do this. This is the way it has to be done. And that's the protocol that we follow, obviously. We do, if that flies in the face of the protocol that we follow, we certainly recommend that they consider it a different way. But ultimately, the group is responsible for their well-being in terms of the protocols that they follow. So we share what we have, but very rarely do we have, at this point, do we have someone coming to us and asking for something that we don't have, because usually we're giving them something that they didn't even thought of.
I'm sure that resource is incredibly helpful for all of your groups. And then another question for you, Keith. Are you traveling now? And if not, when do you foresee future traveling for group travel?
So we actually have a group going to Hawaii in 3 weeks. We have another, oh gosh, about 7, I'm doing this off the top of my head, 7 to 8 groups that are traveling before June 1st. And we are actively recruiting and working on groups that are planning on traveling in the fall. So yes, we are. We had a group in December that went to a marching competition in Texas. So, and not a single problem. We followed all the protocols. The group was super pleased with everything. And it went amazingly well. It was great.
That's fantastic news. Certainly inspirational, I'm sure, for a lot of the people in the audience right now, too. Well, with that, there's no other questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap up just a few minutes early. I wanted to thank the speakers for having a wonderful presentation for us and speaking on this important topic. Thank you so much for all of you who attended this session. You're invited to join us for additional webinars throughout this week. More information can be found on the Education Week page of the Go West Summit website. Thank you so much again, and you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.